have Councillor Douglas Reid,
Yeah.
Councillor Jim McMahon,
Yeah.
Councillor John McFadden,
Here.
Councillor Elaine Cowan,
Here.
Councillor Maureen Mackay,
Are present.
Councillor Ian Linton,
Here.
Councillor Graham Barton,
Yeah.
Councillor Barry Douglas,
Here.
Councillor Neil Ingram,
Here.
Councillor Claire Maitland,
Here.
Councillor Drew Filson.
Here.
Thank you. And I have an apology from Harriet Johnston and Babs Mowat. Do we have Alan Vint?
Yes, here.
Norman Watt
Here.
and Jackie Livingston.
I'm here.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, and now go to item 1, which is the declarations of interest. Don't know if there's, I think probably the Leisure Trust and the Galleon anyway. We'll mark them down. I don't know if there's anything else of significance. Not okay. So no other declarations of interest. So we'll go on to item 2, which is set the 2023-24 revenue budget. Joe McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, members. The paper before you asks Cabinet to consider and forward recommendations on the Council's revenue budget and council tax levels for 2023-24 to the meeting of full Council tomorrow. In considering these recommendations, the first part of the report sets out the wider financial challenges facing the economy in the years ahead, and in seeking to approve a budget that aligns with the Council's medium-term financial strategy and strategic plan, it's important that specific financial and forecast information is available to members. We know from the East Ayrshire Reforms Report that was presented to Cabinet last week how households and businesses, and indeed the Council, have been impacted by inflation, which causes our costs to increase and our income to erode. The chart at paragraph 11 details how the Office for Budget Responsibility and the Scottish Fiscal Commission believe the inflation rate will react in the short to medium term. While their assessment shows that the rate has peaked at over 10% and will now fall, they also believe that the rate will be around 7% this year, although it will remain on a downward trajectory. It is only in these most recent November and December reports from the OBR and from the Scottish Fiscal Commission that they have highlighted their assessment that inflation will fall below zero from the middle of 2024 and remain there for around 2 years before the rate returns to the 2% level. Therefore, members, inflation is and will remain an issue for the Council and for our services throughout the lifetime of our medium-term financial strategy. The assessments by the OBR and the SFC also provide commentary on household disposable income, which is reducing, unemployment levels, which are set to rise, and they also expect the UK economy to enter recession in the coming months. All of these factors mean that there will be significant and concurrent pressures on our services, and as such, it will be important that there is continued alignment to the strategic plan approved by Council in June last year and to the medium-term financial strategy and workforce strategy approved in October. It will be these 3 documents that will act as the guide to support services move out of the pandemic and work through and deal with an environment where financial pressure, volatility and uncertainty is the norm. Paragraph 23 of the report then picks up detail of the provisional financial settlement announced by the Scottish Government in December and which formed the basis of the budget update report presented to Cabinet last month. This report noted that the settlement contained £71 million of unallocated funding, with East Ayrshire's share being £1.7 million. During the budget discussions with members, it was explained that the Council's energy budget is under extreme pressure, and while resources have been added to the budget as part of the process to build the budget for next year, more recent information about our energy costs means that that pressure being experienced will only worsen in 2023-24, and therefore the report before you recommends that £1 million from the £1.7 million unallocated amount is used to increase the energy budget in the years ahead. The report also invites members to consider options for the unallocated amount, which, because of proposed changes to council tax, is now £750,000. Through the regular briefings, members are also aware of the changes that have taken place to the settlement since December, and that the provisional funding allocations to councils are not dependent on a number of conditions around education that have been set by the Scottish Government, and which would see funding allocations reduced should a council not elect not to meet any of the conditions. Members will also be aware that the January update report contained details of the expenditure reduction options that were submitted by services in order to close the £8 million budget gap for 23-24, and that 2 of these options related to a reduction of 21 teacher posts totalling £1.250 million. The latest information we have is that should these 2 options progress, then it is likely that a significant reduction would be made to the council's grant allocation. The potential impact on the council's 23-24 grant levels are such that Cabinet today is asked to recommend to council the deletion of these 2 options from the list of measures needed to close the budget gap. This means that the expenditure reduction measures that were contained in the January report, and which totalled £4.070 million, now total £2.820 million, and result in a new budget gap of £1.250 being created. The options related to the £2.820 million are attached today at Appendix 1. Members today will also be aware that the revenue budget that we built some months ago assumed that council tax would increase by 3% next year. However, following the removal of the 2 education options and the lack of sufficient time to identify and engage on alternative options, it is proposed that council tax is increased by 5% rather than 3% next year in order to balance the budget. Paragraph 45 of the report seeks approval to utilise £250,000 from the General Fund uncommitted balance at the end of this financial year to enable the additional support needs out of school programme to be commissioned externally this summer. The report also seeks approval to allocate £5,000 to the East Ayrshire Integration Joint Board to enable a public protection reviewer to be commissioned on behalf of the council. Paragraph 62 sets out the allocation to the IJB, which has been made in accordance with the requirements of the integration scheme, and demonstrates the successful partnership between the council and the IJB that has existed here since the inception of our IJB. The indicative resource allocations for services are contained at paragraph 64, ensure that the council will allocate a total spending resource of £392 million in 2023-24. The budget being approved incorporates assumptions on pay and makes some provision for contract provision for certain contracts, but the report recognises that contract inflation has not been provided generally to services, and given the high rate of inflation, this means, members, that the spending power of services in their specific service budgets will be less next year than they are now. The medium-term financial strategy made specific mention of the creation of a fund to support early intervention and prevention and to grow innovation, all of which will support the council going forward. Paragraph 84 of the report proposes that £3 million is set aside from the uncommitted balance to establish the fund under the direction of the Chief Executive, with service able to seek funding to support service-based initiatives aimed at lowering costs, reducing demand, and maximising efficiencies and wider opportunities. The medium-term financial strategy also highlighted the revenue costs associated with the capital programme and noted that the debt charge budget will rise by around £7 million by the end of this administration as a result of the projects that are contained in the capital investment report, which is the next item on today's agenda, and is also a report that will be considered by council tomorrow. The medium-term financial strategy noted that given the higher tender and build prices as well as increased interest rates, it was agreed that an affordability indicator developed locally would be created to ensure that our capital plans remain affordable. Consequently, the Treasury management strategy that will be presented to council tomorrow will seek approval to establish a local indicator that will set the debt charge costs at 8% of the council's net revenue income stream. The indicator will be monitored as part of the council's Treasury function, and, as members are aware, movements in interest rates will cause the indicator to rise or fall, resulting in a higher or lower level of headroom in the capital plan. given the importance of this indicator. Updates will be presented within specific Treasury Management reports to Council. The medium-term financial strategy also gave notice that a set of local financial resilience indicators would be prepared and considered by Cabinet today, and these are noted at paragraph 75. The purpose of the indicators is to ensure that the Council is well placed to respond to the financial pressures that are likely in the years ahead. And while these indicators are not mandatory, it can be considered best practice to establish a set of data points that inform members on the financial health of the Council. The indicators will be presented periodically to Cabinet and will include information on our reserves and on our financing costs, as well as noting the percentage of the Council spend made by our two largest budgets, education and social care. Members, the budget engagement period ran from the 18th of January to the 1st of February, and a summary of the comments and views expressed start at paragraph 65, and all the comments have been placed on the members' portal for information. The proposals for the housing revenue accounts and for our rents begin at paragraph 86, and the paragraphs that follow highlight the responses to the consultation that took place, and the proposals on an uplift of 4% in rents and associated charges for garages and lockups. Finally, members, the Stage 3 debate on the Scottish Government's budget was debated in the Scottish Parliament yesterday. And during the discussions, the Deputy First Minister announced an additional £100 million to support local authorities and their expenditure. The funding is also designed to assist councils in making a meaningful 2023-24 pay offer for non-teaching staff, and as such will essentially be a pass-through from Scottish Government to the Council to pay this money out at a future date. Chair, there are 20 recommendations for Cabinet today to consider and remit to Council tomorrow. These are shown at paragraph 2 on page 3, and as always, happy to stop there and take any questions.
Thanks very much, Joe, and I think we'll owe you a debt of gratitude for the hard work that you and your team have put in to this process. Colleagues, I mean, this is one of the toughest, as the toughest settlement that we've ever had, certainly in my lifetime here. And I want to just pay thanks to the financial team that have put us up in relative good stead. That we'll see some of the increases from some of our authorities in terms of council tax and rent. We're in a better position than others. Nevertheless, it's of little comfort as we ask our communities to shoulder some of the burden that the current state of the economy has left us in. As you highlighted in your report, Joe, we've got, in terms of inflation and, reductions in income, increases in unemployment, and the prospect of a UK recession is just very worrying for everyone. But we want to be as best placed as we can to face that. And it's interesting to see in the paper, that two of the main drivers in terms of inflation are energy and food, and that's two of the things that that are really affecting our communities just now. As our community faces a cost of living crisis that seems to be with us for a few years. And that's not a good prospect. It's something that I certainly, and I think all of us around the table here wouldn't want for our communities. But we're in a relatively good position to face that, thanks to the financial stewardship of the team. And I think that's where we want to continue to keep us in that position and be prudent in terms of the changes that we're suggesting to the recommendations. And I think the drive towards early intervention and maximising innovation and good practice, digitalisation, all the things that we've been doing already, but to increase our efforts there is where we need to go and put some of our resources there. And you'll hear some of the detail of that, as you say, in good time. But also in terms of our capital plan, which has always been really ambitious and successful, as we opened a new school yesterday, so that down in the other third, and we're absolutely delighted to see some of the impact that had in that community. Sadly, we'll have to look at that, our capital programme. We know there's other things to do, but we need to draw that in line and keep a watchful eye on that in terms of the debt charges, as you say. And I think that's somewhere we need to go. But I'll just leave it with those comments just now, and I'll probably have a bit more to say maybe later on and probably tomorrow at the full council meeting. Colleagues, Barry.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say thank you, first of all, to officers. This is not easy. Also thank the Leader of the Council, who has been critical, I think, of the Scottish Government in terms of their, I think, the way the local government has been dealt a difficult blow this time, and putting politics aside to do that, I think, is welcome. I thought it was really important in the paper and the comments you made about inflation in relation to, you know, the elephants in the room potentially being caused by Brexit and the war in Ukraine in relation to food and energy costs, but not workers' wages, that some in the media would like us to believe. So I think just hopefully you would agree with me that workers' wages absolutely are not creating this inflationary bubble, but in reality it's these external factors. But ultimately, yeah, we have a proposal before us. We're going to comment on the merits or otherwise at this stage. I think there'll be more on that tomorrow. But I just want to really thank everybody who has been involved in this process. I know everybody in this room at some point or another has been sitting down for hours long into the night in many occasions and in the weekend in terms of our finance team. So more power at their elbow, and thank you for everything they do to try and do the best for the people of East Ayrshire. Thanks.
Thanks, Barry. Yeah, I agree totally in terms of the issues that some of our communities face in terms of wages, just unable to keep up with rocketing fuel prices, and as we see the prices in the supermarket shelves. That's if there's anything on the supermarket shelves, so sadly in some cases. But we really need to work collectively to make sure that we reduce the impact and the burden in our communities, and hopefully we can go some way towards that in terms of the budget we'll be moving. But in terms of the recommendations today, is there any other comments or questions? Okay, nothing online. So, sorry, Maureen.
Thank you very much. Will not be a surprise to you that I would seek to move an amendment to the recommendations that are before us and request that we note the recommendations and see those further considered by Council tomorrow.
Thanks, Maureen. And Barry, I take it your second.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I'll be moving the recommendations as contained in the paper and seconded by Councillor McMahon. Okay, we'll just maybe go to the vote. Colleagues, for the to take the amendment first. David, keep me right here.
So the motion is.
The amendment is more.
Yeah. So the motion is by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor McMahon, which is per the recommendation, is to recommend all the recommendations to Council tomorrow, and the amendment by Councillor Mackay is to note and refer the recommendations to Council tomorrow. So obviously, given we're on Teams, it'll be a roll call vote, and Christine will just go through now and ask each member to confirm whether they're for the motion, which is to recommend, or the amendment, which is to note and refer. Thank you.
Thanks, David. So, Councillor Reid.
Motion.
Councillor McMahon.
Motion.
Councillor McFadden.
Amendment.
Councillor Cowan.
Motion.
Councillor Mackay.
Amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Linton.
Motion.
Councillor Barton.
Motion.
Councillor Douglas.
Amendment.
Councillor Ingram.
Motion.
Councillor Maitland.
Motion.
Councillor Filson.
Motion.
Thanks. And so we will also go to the non-elected members. So, Alan Vint.
Oh, abstain.
Thank you. Norman Watt.
Motion.
Thank you. And Jackie Livingston.
I'll abstain.
Thanks, Jackie. So I can confirm that the motion has been carried by 9 votes to 3. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks, colleagues. Okay, we're going to item 3, which is Building a Future East Ayrshire Capital Investment Programme update. And Andrew Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides Cabinet with an update on the capital investment programme and outlines the review of the programme in the context of the overall asset management framework and the budget position that has been outlined by Joe in the previous report. This year provides a really difficult position for the capital programme, recognising we continue to deliver positive investment across our communities while being faced with real and complex challenges to the council funding and across the construction industry with inflation, borrowing costs and supply chain challenges. The capital investment programme has, over the past 15 years, been a major tranche of the council's strategic approach to deliver change across our communities, and we've reported that on an annual basis. Over the past 5 years, closer alignment to the budget position and the strategic aims have been established with the asset management framework. However, as in 2020, as we reflected the impact on the programme during COVID, this report reflects the current medium-term programme and the immediate financial challenges to reset our priorities and agenda to move forward. The report sets out the principles of the asset management framework with the strategic objectives outlined in paragraph 9. Driving the value of our investment. It is noted the asset management framework is an overarching approach and covers all our main asset groups. The framework provides the structure and the funding with a range of other reports linking our assets to the wider strategic context, as well as asset plans providing more detailed approaches for each asset group. The wider context of our capital investment has been considered and refreshed in line with the strategic plan. And paragraphs 13 to 21 note the Cabinet decisions in the past 12 months, providing that those clear links to the strategic priorities of the Council. As I have said already, the capital investment programme continues to deliver major projects year on year, with a range of projects completed this year, from the Dean Castle restoration to, as the leader has mentioned, Netherthird Primary School, with the young people returning this week. We've also seen £158 million of external funding being secured over the past 5 years, which, on top of the borrowing Joe has referenced, has been able to deliver over £500 million of investment. As was previously noted in the budget report and the financial strategy, a key outcome of the review of the capital programme has been the consideration of the overall affordability. This has identified the local affordability indicator linked to 8% of the revenue budget. This provides the capacity to set a limit of investment, which on current calculations would allow the existing quantum of the programme to be retained. However, in conjunction with the overall affordability indicator, all projects have been reviewed in relation to deliverability and readiness. This has been set out as fully defined, partially defined and undefined projects. This has allowed a consideration of when budgets are likely to be spent, with fully defined projects noted where the project will incur expenditure over the next 2 to 3 years, and with less defined projects unlikely to reach construction stage in those timescales, and the budget profiles been amended to reflect this in Appendix 1. Recognising that in establishing the affordability level will require us to set any new demands against the current projects and priorities of existing programme, resulting in reductions in some areas. Less defined projects may require to consider scope changes, alternative funding sources or added value. The capital programme also allows for ongoing investment streams where annual allocations are utilised to manage ongoing asset values, with ICT, roads, property lifecycle investment as examples noted in the report. It is recognised that these areas also have links to revenue spend, and services utilise these funds to balance pressures and assist preventative spend in future. At last week's Cabinet, I presented the Facilities and Property Management Service Review, and the capital investment has a direct link to the strategic approach of the service noted from paragraph 43, and the impact of a consistent project pipeline on delivery, resources and the use of external professional services. It is also proposed in the report to sign up to the Construction Charter. As costs are challenged, it is important to reaffirm the value and commitment to quality and ensure we continue to strive for the highest standards. The strategic objectives of each asset portfolio are set out in more detail from paragraph 50, with individual project updates also included indicating the readiness status, the current progress, and where further action is required. Priority projects being progressed this year include the Doon campus and Stuarton Academy extension, Moorfield expansion and community-led place-based funding, energy efficiency improvements in active travel, Palace Theatre, Luff Bid project and the Infinity Loop, new Cumnock flood scheme being completed and further work on the Kilmarnock car parking plans. There's also investment in digital care and the council's green fleet. A number of action areas and further defining of projects is required, and these areas are set out in the recommendations, where officers are currently undertaking more detailed work with further information to be presented to Cabinet over the coming months. Therefore, I hope members recognise how our capital investment continues to provide a positive impact, and we continue to celebrate that success. But within the current context, that requires a realism to the extent and pace of the programme, ensuring our activity continues to support the strategic priorities in the communities we serve. I would therefore ask members to note the 17 recommendations on page 32 and submit the report for consideration of Council tomorrow. And again, happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Andrew. Just maybe a question in terms of, we know this is really beneficial to the business community. Have there been any kind of, in community wealth building? Have there been sort of discussions with the business community or anything like that, or construction sector, just to get themselves prepared for this? And we obviously want local companies to do as best they can within procurement, and are we ready? Are we help assisting them as well? And
so maybe there's a couple of elements of that, and I maybe let David come in on part of that in terms of the support. I mean, clearly in terms of the contractual relationship that we have, there are a number of routes that we take, and there are requirements within the conditions of contract that set some standards around training, around investment, and certainly in terms of local supply chain. And then in addition to that, obviously there is the kind of economic growth support that is provided to businesses to make sure that they're ready as well. So we're going to try to come at it from a number of different areas as well. But again, we're doing some further work with procurement in terms of setting clearer community benefits as well through our procurement approach as well. So maybe David can come in terms of some of the business support.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, Chair, I mean, there is, what we're looking to do is build capacity for businesses so that they have both the kind of knowledge, expertise to apply for, these larger contracts, and indeed help to see if there's any innovative ways. You remember previously we've got approval to look at the net zero ambition for the accelerator process that will be running for 25 businesses, and the idea is to look at them to make them more energy efficient, so that they can actually, when they're bidding for procurement programs, that they actually are right at the cutting edge of being able to deliver. We're also looking at how we can help those businesses and talking to them to see how to help upskill them, so that there's the employability offer there as well. And as you'll be aware from some of the reports at Cabinet, there is opportunities for us to get into the business sector to support them with apprentices. So we are there, and it's just working with them, and we're linking back through David Mitchell's team at procurement, and to see how best we can join that loop together.
That's really good. It's good to hear we're helping businesses through this difficult circumstances that we're in. Maureen.
Thanks very much. I don't think it'll be any surprise, and forgive me, I'm going to now be completely parochial. I do have to ask the question in terms of just what the wording is, in terms of the recommendation, in terms of the LEAP Phase 3 bid. It rather infers in the recommendation, as I read it, that officers have got some information available on the outcome of the bid. And I know that there is some real concern. I certainly yesterday waited really with fingers crossed in terms of stage 3 debate that I was going to hear what would have been the wonderful words, and that is we are happy to announce a particular sum of money funding in terms of Kilmarnock North West LEAP bid.
Well, we're certainly hopeful of some kind of announcement and just absolutely share that. Eddie, I don't know if you've heard anything, the latest update.
Straightforward answer is no. We have not heard anything in terms of the update. You know, there's been a number of dates that we've anticipated that we'd hear it, you know, but at this stage we have no further, you know, formal or informal information that we can share with members in terms of, you know, where we are at this stage.
Appreciate that that's raising some real concerns. I mean, I have real concerns, and I know that the public have got some real concerns. I have shared certainly with the head of education that I have gone literally from a parent council meeting pre-Christmas to when we were actually talking about so what would be, you know, the travel decant plans, to then post-Christmas. There is sufficient concern that people are actually questioning, is this a project that is actually going ahead? That's a huge change. Have you, Chief Executive, ever seen a situation where we have been in the situation where we have been given dates that we are expecting to hear an outcome of a bid and have seen those dates move and be as uncertain as we currently are in relation to this particular LEAP bid?
Do you, Chair? Unfortunately, we do see that sometimes, you know, that it moves. I think, you know, one of the particular issues for us here is not only the issues around the schools involved in the LEAP bid, but also the wider issues around some of our education estate, and as the discussion around, you know, affordability, then if that didn't come through, what that would mean for the wider capital programme if we're going to stick to the cap on a capital programme. So this is implications not only for the particular schools that we're talking about, this is implications for the wider school programme, and it's implications for the wider capital programme, you know, if we are going to stick to these, you know, like revenue implications of capital that we're discussing here. So it's concerning for us all, because we all recognise that, you know, we need to look at the overall support in the school estate to make sure it delivers adequately for our young people.
But not the last time I raised this, I know this has been discussed at COSLA, and we had some reassurances from ministers, but we continue to press that, because I know that other leaders are in the same situation, that have got bids in. There is this bit of uncertainty, and we really need to tie the government down in this one to get a response and just get some reassurance about the funding for the project. So I'll certainly be taking it up through all channels to try and get some kind of reassurance in terms of the funding, and we'll let members know as soon as I get a response.
Thank you. Well, you certainly know, I hope, that you have my ongoing support in relation to that, because I understand, just as has been said, not only the impacts on this particular school, but on the wider. So that's wider with particular reference to other school in terms of Ward 2, and then implications into Ward 1 in terms of what our aspirations are there. So again, when we have been as thorough and as diligent as we have in terms of our expansion and improvements to our school estate, I think it really is something that we are exceedingly frustrated about, and really does feel like a kick in the teeth in terms of years upon years of really good, strong work that has been carried out with the support of elected members, cross-party, and the hard work of hard-working officers. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Okay. Any other points? Questions? I jump in.
Just comment. It would have been remiss of me not to highlight the positive impact that Andrew has mentioned, both in to the towns in my ward. One would be Newcombe in the flood defence schemes that will just coming to their conclusion, and delighted to see that and the impact that's had on the communities for the last one of them completed 2 years ago, and thankfully we've had no more houses flooded since, and hopefully for the future it continues to have that impact on us. And secondly was in education in Netherthird School yesterday. It was fantastic finally to be there and see the kids coming back to their educational home. I know the positive impact that will have on not just the people of the school, but the wider community round about that, for the focus is the school and round about the community centre. So yeah, that investment in the capital programme was it paid dividends for me and the two particular towns.
Thanks very much for that, Jim. Well, if you're doing that, I'll maybe praise a couple of developments in the housing programme in my ward, and as I see some of the tenants move into new houses at Bellevue Gardens and in Witch Road, and certainly the collective work we've done in Witch Road, Central, North and Kilmarnock is now a destination of choice where people want to go rather than avoid, and that's down to some of the really hard work that our communities team and our housing team should be really proud of. Maureen?
Very much. Yes, I certainly don't want to not praise the work that has been done in relation to the flooding in New Cumnock. I think the last day that I was actually there to see the progress that was being made, I was still shaken by the fact that people in the street were coming to speak to us, still talking about their experiences of what the flooding had actually meant to them and their concerns and their real hope that this was going to be a solution and that they would never be living in threat again of what they had already experienced. So again, huge piece of work, and we'd want to commend that because it really is a vast civil engineering project that we've seen. That's absolutely the case. Also, when you're talking about Netherthird School, it is an absolute delight to have been there yesterday afternoon. And I think what we've seen is those of us that have been lucky enough to have been here for a while have seen various parts of learning that we've had. And it really is now all beginning to come together and culminate in really a terrific design with lessons well learned from other experiences that we've had. And actually doing that, you know, listening, having the experience and learning is something that's a hallmark of really a good, hard-working team. And that has certainly been the case. Equally, in terms of Witch Road as well, I'm absolutely delighted. And I had the privilege just before Christmas to meet a couple of the newest residents at that point that I know well, who have been through all sorts of traumas, all of the way from when we had the limitations on number of bedrooms that would actually be funded, and people having to make really dire circumstances and changes to their lives at that point. And I am absolutely thrilled to have been able to meet a couple of sisters who now have a joint shared tenancy and are so delighted that they can see a future where they actually live out the remainder of their lives in a property that they are well delighted with. So those are positive things, and I would always want to have the opportunity to comment on those.
Thanks very much for that, Maureen. Okay, if there's no other points, can we go to recommendations? Page 32. Oh, Maureen, yeah.
Moving for this to be noted and to be continued on without a recommendation to note and refer, David, I think is the phrase that you've used. Thank you.
And I'll be moving the recommendations within the paper.
Councillor Douglas, can I just clarify you seconding?
Absolutely, yeah.
Mackay? Thank you.
I'll second the leader.
Okay, thanks, Chair. We'll just go to the vote. And again, if you could indicate for the motion or for the amendment. Councillor Reid.
Just to confirm, the motion this time is by Councillor Mackay, seconded by Councillor Douglas, just in terms of the timing to refer to note and refer the recommendations to Council tomorrow, and the amendment by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor McMahon, is per the paper to agree and recommend, sorry, the recommendations to Council. So the motion and then the amendment.
Thanks, David. So Councillor Reid.
Thanks. Amendment.
Councillor McMahon.
Amendment.
Councillor McFadden. Councillor McFadden. Come back to you. Councillor Cowan.
Amendment.
Councillor Mackay.
Motion, thank you.
Councillor Linton.
Amendment.
Councillor Barton.
Amendment.
Councillor Douglas.
Motion.
Councillor Ingram.
Amendment.
Councillor Maitland.
Amendment.
Councillor Filson.
Amendment.
And Alan Vint.
Abstain.
Thank you. Norman Watt.
Abstain.
Thank you. Jackie Livingston.
Abstain.
And can I just go back? Councillor McFadden. No there. No, that's great. I don't think Councillor McFadden's still on the call, so I can just confirm that the amendment has been carried by 8 votes to 2. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks for that, Christine. Yeah, but is Councillor McFadden, is he off? It caused too much confusion, doesn't it? Is he off? Okay. Right. Okay, thanks, Christine. Okay, the next item is jobs and training update, and what? Amanda.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, members. This report's to provide Cabinet with an update on the progress of the Council's apprenticeship programme currently being funded via the Jobs and Training Scheme. Paragraphs 3 through to 6 show the background of the establishment of the programme and then of the Future Skills team. On page 71, the current position at paragraph 7 is asking Cabinet to note that at the time of writing, 109 young people have been appointed or are in the process of being appointed to posts via the scheme, and in addition to this, a further 33 have been appointed from existing commitments. The rest of paragraph 7 then breaks down into the number of apprentices, modern apprentices, graduate interns, provision to local businesses, noting that there are 27 plus an additional 7 in the process and the existing commitments, and gives members a breakdown of the services that they've been employed to. Paragraphs 9 through to 16 talks about the next steps, and this is the work that's been carried out with the Future Skills teams with other services obviously across the council. Obviously noting that due to the increase in the number of apprentices, the work has obviously expanded greatly. We note that the team is going to be joining schools for recruitment fairs. Paragraph 11 notes the professional collaboration group that meets at Doon Academy. Paragraph 12 talks about planning a East Ayrshire Futures Careers and Apprenticeship Fair in March. These have now been confirmed, being at the Grand Hall on the 16th of March and being at Cumnock Town Hall on the 21st of March. Both events are running through from 10 AM to 3 PM with a particular focus on our schools and employability clients between 10 and 1 PM. Paragraph 15 is asking Cabinet to consider that future updates are contained within the people pages of East Ayrshire Performs and provided on a quarterly basis from 23-24. Paragraph 16 notes that for 23-24 there's a further 55 bids for training posts. And paragraph 17 and 18 cover the financial implications, noting that the fund was earmarked £6 million, and that paragraph 18 for all commitments to date, around £5.6 million has been committed, and also noting that the services are making contributions towards the costs. The people implications are in paragraphs 19 through to 22. Trade union colleagues within collective bargaining have been actively involved in this programme and welcome it. And the policy and community plan implications are detailed in paragraph 24 with recommendations in paragraph 2. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much. Great to see this paper and so many young people benefiting from something that we all were agreed to last year. And I think only now we're just seeing the impacts of COVID has had on young people in particular in their search to get jobs and proper training. And it's great that we can do a wee bit, more than a wee bit here to do that. And it's something I think we should be absolutely proud of. Colleagues, any comments or questions? Maureen.
Thank you very much. Yes, I would certainly echo. It's certainly something that was introduced last year, and I know it has been expanded on about how we have had to obviously take changes to account for the success of this. And again, I think what it does demonstrate is that decisions that we will all take tomorrow at the end of the day, if they are really good things, do have knock-on effects. So I look forward to seeing what changes we come up with for tomorrow, and obviously the flexibility and adaptability of us as a council in terms of a response to those. Thank you very much, but well done everybody on this one.
Thanks very much, Maureen. Yeah, totally agree. And just, I think the staff really need to thank them very much for all the hard work in delivering this. Okay, any other comments or questions? Do.
It's good to see that the collaboration group that are doing academy, and it gives a good route through for the people in the rural communities through to get apprenticeships. Okay.
Absolutely, Drew. It's good to see that. You know, everybody in all localities benefiting right through East Ayrshire. That's good to see. Okay, can we agree the recommendations in paragraph 2? Okay, grand. And sorry, that's the end of the education reports. Thanks, thanks, colleagues.
Thank you.
Okay, now go to item 5, the final item, and that's East Ayrshire Health and Social Care Partnership, Social Care Contribution and Charging Framework and Approved Charges 23-24. Yep.
Thanks, Chair. This is the annual social care uplift report, and it mirrors the IGIB report that will be presented on the 29th of March. In terms of delegation, the Council's responsibility for setting charges and the IGIB for approving the provider rates. The report's to seek approval with social care charges and is driven by the uprating of the national guidance. It details inflationary adjustments to the framework and seeks elected member approval to increase thresholds and income disregards. Charging and rates are reviewed annually and takes account of revised guidance for COSLA, the DWP and the Scottish Government. The key contribution and charging framework details are noted in paragraphs 11 to 25. In respect to the calculation for annual budgets, in paragraph 20, the weekly indicative home care hourly rate is currently sitting at £19.03, and this takes account of the national guidance in relation to the adult social care pay uplift. The rate for 23-24 is under review and will be uplifted following further guidance and will be presented to the IGIB for approval. In paragraphs 23 to 25, they make reference to the recommendation by the Independent Review of Adult Social Care and the commitment by the Scottish Government and COSLA to remove non-residential charges. It's been paused nationally due to the financial challenges and no funding has been allocated as a consequence of this. There's still the commitment to remove charging during the lifetime of the current Parliament. Non-residential charges are detailed in paragraphs 26 to 33, and in line with the Council's decision to freeze charges, it's proposed that the framework maximum charge is held at the current year's rate of £107.32. Threshold levels and calculation of tariff income increase in line with DWP benefits and COSLA guidance, and the thresholds are based on minimum benefits with an additional 25% buffer on top of that. The details of the proposed thresholds are noted in Table 1. You can see that there's a substantial increase this year, and that's as a result of the DWP uplift at 10%. If an individual's got income below the threshold, there'll be no contribution other than flat rate charges. It's proposed that the disregard the income above the threshold is maintained at the 40%, and that means that the individual will be charged up to 60% of their income over the thresholds. In Appendix 1, that details benefit levels and thresholds, and importantly, the last column details the income an individual would be left with after they've been charged. Table 2 at paragraph 30 details the rates for 23-24, and the proposals also to hold the weekly charges, and that's at £20 for blue badges, daycare at £3.39 and community alarm at £4.31. Paragraphs 31 and 32 provide uprated indicative unit costs in relation to costing annual self-directed support personal budgets. In paragraph 33, the subsidy for community meals is currently £1.02 and the proposals to continue at the same level.
Details of rates for social care services are shown in paragraphs 34 to 37, and these will be presented to the IGIB for approval on the 29th of March. Agreement is still to be reached in respect to care homes. The starting points, the 22-23 cost model assumptions and the annual social care pay uplift for providing direct care. There's also additional cost pressures in areas of dispute in relation to increasing costs, including energy and insurance. It's hoped that the revised National Care Home contract can be agreed prior to the 31st of March. However, there's no certainty at this stage and it's looking unlikely. A benchmarking exercise in respect to payments for internal child allowances confirmed that East Ayrshire is still comparably high. And following further review, a report will be presented to the IGIB with any recommendations for uplifts. Legal and framework implications are detailed in paragraphs 38 and financial implications in paragraphs 39 to 41. And it's recommended that the increase takes place in line with the DWP uplifts on the 10th of April. The risk implications are noted in paragraphs 43 to 46, and the uncertainty around care home fees represents a substantial financial risk as all placements are procured for external providers. So the recommendations are in paragraph 2. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks. Just my one question. Just thanks for it. It was just about the community meals. You know, with inflation and prices. You know, these days I don't think £1.02 would get you a ton of soup. You know, just what can you? You know, there must be quite a bit of pressure to deliver, you know, nutritional meals. How are we coping with that just now?
Mike, sorry. So meals is popular, obviously, in East Ayrshire. So what happens is the person has been paying the exact same amount. So they pay about £2.43 and £2.63, depending on if they've got equipment or no. And that's remained. That has been the same cost for a number of years. And the subsidy that we actually fund has been going up each year. We haven't been increasing the cost to the individual.
Just for clarification, Leader, the meal's not £1.2.
No,
that's a subsidy. You know, there's the other £2 odds that add on top of that as well.
No, thanks. I was well aware of that, but it's you know, it can be something that, you know, the price of producing a meal will, you know, be well in excess of that, and it's just how much pressure that's been on the department. Really, was what was after.
Aye, so we take the additional cost. The individual doesn't take the extra cost for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chair, I think it's just worth emphasising, and Fiona did go over it a couple of times, but I just want to draw in as well, that the risk around, you know, like 23-24 rates in terms of what we need to pay our contracted providers. You know, clearly, you know, at present, you know, what's been, you know, given to us through the settlement is a 3.8% uplift to go from the £10.50 to the £10.90, you know, per hours. You know, when we speak to our social care providers, a number of them, you know, are saying, you know, maybe not surprisingly, that their workforce is not happy, you know, we're getting that level of uprate when they see the different uplifts that are going across. They also highlight, you know, issues around, as Fiona said, energy, insurance and food. So there is a question, you know, about, you know, where that risk lies in terms of what we anticipate could be a significant uplift, and not just the National Care Home contract, but care at home rates too. So does that risk lie with the IGIB? Does that risk lie with the council, with the statutory duty to provide social care? Or does that risk lie at a national level with Scottish Government funding that? But I do think that that's a significant risk, you know, as we look forward. And I think it's important that Fiona highlights it here, because it's not just an IGIB risk, it's a risk that knocks on then at council and at national level.
Thanks, Eddie. Any other points, Maureen?
Thank you. I always find it really sobering when we start actually looking at these papers. You know, we're so much focused on huge sums in the papers that have come previously. This is really about real people's lives. And when you actually start looking at this, so again, Fiona, you know, single people over pension age, the annual threshold at 13,140, but actually state pension, and I I'm making an expectation that there are many people in our communities where that is still their sole income that they actually have is still under £10,000. So of course they would be well below this threshold. I think, you know, it befits us well to just hold that as a reality against what we've already talked about in terms of energy costs and food costs rising. It really is a huge concern ongoing. And I think, you know, we should always remember how vulnerable people are within our communities. And this paper actually coming at this stage is always helpful for us. I do have a question, Fiona, in terms of community alarms. Again, I am concerned about people's abilities to actually sort of pay community alarms. So I'm talking, first of all, we've clearly got people who are below a threshold. So just some clarification for that. And then we will have people who perhaps are round about the, you know, late 13s, so they're above the threshold. So community alarms and our weekly charges. Do we have any current level of debt that we're carrying in relation to community alarm payments?
Yes, aye. And so community alarms are non-means tested, so that they're flat rate charges. So currently what happens with our community alarms is there's annual accounts issued, and it's issued in May each year. And individuals have the opportunity to pay it weekly, monthly, fortweekly, with a reducing balance. So it's very difficult to see at a point in time, unless it's at the end of April time, how much is actually outstanding. There's also ongoing debt that's included in that as well, which has been for a few years. So it is very, very difficult to tell at this point in time. But we're sitting around about 16 to 20,000 in debt at the minute and it's about 700,000 is how much we issue in alarms on an annual basis.
Well, that's really a significant burden, and perhaps is a further reflection in terms of how deep the cost of living is actually hitting at the moment, particularly, you know, as you've explained to us that it is a non-means tested benefit. So perhaps that's certainly, you know, an area that we have to take cognizance of. Thank you very much.
Craig, could I maybe bring you in here?
Yep, thanks, Chair. Just in relation to, as Fiona mentioned there, that there will be an outstanding balance at a point in time. So clearly now, when we look at it, there'll be a balance there. What's probably quite important is that won't all be necessarily arrears. I think as Fiona described, there's a big balance issued at the start of the year, and that reduces as time goes on. So while there is an outstanding balance here, it's not necessarily all arrears, it's just an outstanding balance, and that will continue to reduce between now and the end of the financial year. That's not to say at the end of the year there will still be an outstanding balance here for some people, and that's absolutely managed on a case-by-case basis. So what we wouldn't want to do if somebody truly can't pay their community alarm, we wouldn't want to have to withdraw that service, because we recognise that as absolutely about personal safety in many cases as well. So the social worker would review on a case-by-case basis exactly where we are with those individuals to ensure that any repayment plans were affordable, and if there was write-offs, etc., being considered in there, it would be very much person-centred and round about the individual's needs at any given point in time. So maybe just to give you that reassurance that it is very much about the individual at every step of the way here.
That's great. I think it's absolutely something we really need to keep a close eye on, because there must be some people really kind of struggling there. And I just, you know, if there's anything we can do to kind of help out there, just Eddie.
Just to confirm, you know, the Health and Social Care Partnership, Fiona's team, they carry a significant, you know, budget and able to ameliorate any, you know, like debt that Craig has described when we go out and assess that people just can't afford to. There is a budget that sits there that actually we can, you know, write off, you know, like debt, as was described previously in terms of how the model is for, you know, school meals, etc. We go out and individually look at, you know, people, and if it needs written off, we write it off.
Okay, I mean, I think it's something we need to keep a close eye on, and just maybe report back just if there's any kind of concerns, you know, as we continue to, you know, cope with this cost of living crisis that we have in front of us. You know, and that's you know, these people are really, you know, when you get in the granular level, as you say, Maureen, you know, you just see, you know what a slice of this other their income. This is just in terms of safety. Eddie, sorry.
Just one final thing around that, and again, I think lots of us could talk about this all day because it's our passion. If you actually look at Appendix 1, you actually see the impact that really good work of a financial inclusion team can do. You know, so when you look at people, you know, on low rates of you know, like some of the disability benefits up to the high rates. So you look at a single pensioner, you know, a low rate disability benefit at 269, get in there and getting a proper financial inclusion assessment. If you move up to the high rate, you're up by £100 plus, you know, like per week. It just shows you when we talk about the impact that John Dalton and many partners actually do in terms of doing income maximisation. That's the type of impact that you're talking about for individuals actually getting there and getting their benefits, you know, done. So you actually do see, again, real time for real people, the impact of what happens with good financial inclusion work.
No, absolutely, and we're grateful for all that they're doing just now. Absolutely. Okay, Maureen.
Oh, thank you. And again, I think it's always useful to do those things. Fiona, did you say that there was, or Craig, I'm not sure which of you said that there was some outstanding debt of round about 16 to 20,000. So that it's not a huge sum of money, but again, it's about what the impact on those individuals are. So that's something I think, Chief Executive, you're saying that can then be looked at via the IJB in terms of their funding and can be approached. And we're moving towards an IJB development day and actually looking at sort of IJB budget setting. So it's an appropriate time for us to actually look at these things. Thank you very much, all.
I think we'll definitely have to do that. I think that'll be included, Craig. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the development session next week, as Councillor Mackay outlined, for the members of the IJB, and then the full budget agreeing session would be the 29th of March with opportunity to reflect any decisions in there. So yeah, plenty of opportunity to talk through some of the detail of this. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Craig. Good bit of discussion there. Can we look at the recommendations, paragraph 2? Can we agree them? Okay. Oh, just to remind you, there's a cup of tea for MND. So that's in the canteen.
Cupcakes.
So cupcakes there, but somebody's will have to have diet cupcakes, I think. Certainly include myself in that, absolutely. But have a wee cup of tea for MND.